Welcome to the second episode of 50 Shades of Jewish Grief. I'm Rabbi Shlomo Segal. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like and feel free to share. Today's podcast is called The Casket That You Coff-In. It is being dedicated to the memory of Leonard ben Avraham. It is a very great mitzvah to bury the dead. The commandment comes from the Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 21, which teaches us to bury a deceased person as swiftly as we are able. Every member of the Jewish people is entitled to a proper burial, whether the person was righteous, wicked, or just a plain person. The question before us is, what kind of casket is sufficient for a proper burial? Among observant Jews, the general custom is to bury a loved one in a plain wooden pine box. This is based upon the ruling of Maimonides, the Rambam. He preferred wooden coffins, and many authorities have followed him. Interestingly, pine boxes are environmentally friendly. They are biodegradable and can be directly buried in the ground. Observant Jews also make certain that the casket has loose boards on the bottom so that there is direct contact with the earth. This practice was based on a Mishneh which states that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, ordered that holes be drilled in the base of his coffin so that his body might touch the soil. His wishes were in keeping with the biblical verse in Genesis, "For dust you are, and unto dust you shall return." Now, this verse is a very important one because it gives Jewish burial its theological significance. Throughout Jewish history, however, there were several different methods of burial. In ancient times, burials in caves and niches cut into the walls of the cave were quite common. Stone or pottery coffins were used as well. And in fact, one of the greatest people in the Bible, none other than Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph, was buried in a coffin made of metal, although that coffin was fashioned for him by the Egyptians. The prevailing practice in Israel, in keeping with the Shulhan Arukh, is for the dead to be buried directly in the ground. In fact, my father, Olav Shalom, of blessed memory, was buried in Israel. He had no coffin and was buried directly in the ground. Rabbi Yechiel Michal Halevi Epstein, otherwise known as the Aruch Hashulchan, was one of the greatest halachic authorities in Lithuania in the 19th century. He ruled that the preferable method of burial is for one to be directly interred into the ground so that one fulfills the literal meaning of the words in Genesis, which I mentioned earlier, "Dust you are, and unto dust you shall return." However, he does say that one could fulfill the requirement of a proper burial in a casket as well. In conclusion, we learn from this discussion that the body of a deceased person must return to the earth. This can be accomplished by either burying someone directly in the ground, using a wood casket, which is preferable but not essential. Accordingly, if someone wishes to have a casket other than wood, they may arrange for such, provided that the box will deteriorate. Metal, for example, in contrast to stone or pottery, does deteriorate and would be permissible, especially if holes are drilled into the bottom of the casket to provide contact with the earth. Ultimately, the method used for burial, which includes the casket we select, assuming that we will be using one, must reflect the values of humility, respect, and eternal remembrance. Please feel free to leave your questions or thoughts in the comments section below.